Welcome to Merschman Seeds Cup of Joe. On this episode, hear about how our Merschman PowerCore Enlist Corn hybrids performed in an independent third-party replicated trial and why we chose these hybrids for our product lineup. Dylan shares information on soybean cyst nematode sampling from Greg Tylka of Iowa State. Hear how adding Peking soybeans in the mix can help solve your soybean cyst nematode problems.
Hi, this is Joe Merschman. Welcome to Merschman Seeds Cup of Joe. Today we have Ben, Lynn, and Dylan. And, well, Ben, you've been looking at some numbers on corn. I thought maybe you should go first.
Yeah, we got our independent third-party replicated trial, not just the strip trial plots that we've been looking at. That data came in this week, and I kind of got it all pulled apart, and I'm very, very impressed with how our corn lineup looks. So in the corn world, inventory is one of the hardest things to manage because corn does last. We don't throw it away at the end of the year like we do soybeans. And the hardest thing for a seed company to do is manage inventory because products are constantly turning and there's new stuff always coming. What makes me so excited about the data that we're going to talk about is that the products that we have right now, because of some of the picks we've taken and some of the gambles we've taken, are the best products coming out of the PowerCore lineup right now.
And when you say gambles, that means we put them into production with a limited amount of data, but it was strong enough that we said, hey, we're going to go forward.
Yes. Yep.
So if that puts us so far ahead in having availability to our customers, that's a big plus for them.
Yep, and everything that we do and everything that farmers do, there's a little bit of gamble involved because, you got 60 different options in medium maturity, which would be like 110 day to like 114, 15 days. So I'm really, really excited with how the data turned out. I firmly believe that the 2512 C-30 and the 2512 C-0, which would be the conventional version versus the PowerCore version, is one of the strongest products in the marketplace. The only thing which isn't even available yet, there's only one product that is an experimental by experimental, is the only thing that beat it in the entire lineup. So it beat all of the checks. It is running extremely hard right now. So when I'm looking at this data, we're looking at brand new products from DeKalb that are in the 119, 117 day, 114 day, 115 day, and the fact that 112 day over 35 different locations across the Midwest, stretching from, I think the testing starts in Nebraska and Kansas and works all the way over to the East Coast. In 35 different locations, it was the number one product.
So what you're telling me, Ben, is the only reason why you wouldn't plant Merschman corn is because you don't want to raise your tax bracket? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't know if we're going to go quite that far, but the 2512 C-30 is definitely a product that guys need to be looking at. And then from that product, that's the cornerstone of our portfolio right now. And then you turn around and then you layer the different maturities, like the 2413 did extremely well as well. When we look at it in the two different data sets that I have here, it was definitely above average. We know that product can handle stress a little bit better than some other products on the market. And then we have the 111 day on the opposite side, so we can go a little bit earlier, a little bit later, split our risk on pollination timing and things of that nature. But the data sets that we have sitting in front of us here, which we're probably not going to publish and show everybody today because I don't have it quite all the way cleaned up, but the Merschman lineup is extremely solid. So I'm talking like 108, 106% win ratios when we're looking at all 35 locations. We have strong data in the east, which is basically the Illinois line over. We have strong data from Illinois to I-35, which is the center slice of data, and we have very strong data moving west. And that's the other thing that I wanted to talk about, is that these products are performing extremely consistently with a broad footprint.
How'd that 106 day do this year?
The 106 days in the same exact boat that the 112 day is. There's no products that beat it. There's no experimentals actually that beat that product. From a win percentage ratio or percent over mean yield, that one is in the 107, 106% range as well, which is almost unheard of. So that's a very, very strong product. 2506 C-30, we have that one available as a PowerCore only at this point, but it is very, very strong and very, very consistent. There's some lineage that it shares with the 108 day. The 108 day is no slouch, but It's just a little bit earlier version of what the 108-day acts like. But it is a extremely consistent product, works east, central, and west.
You made a comment there about being excited about our lineup and the things that are coming down the pipeline. But to your point, the stuff that we first came out with that very first year is still hanging right in there with everything else, and giving us that full spectrum portfolio offering that guys are accustomed to getting from other seed companies that they might not know that we have that, but we can give, especially if someone if 110 to 115 is in your wheelhouse, we're there. We can give you every option that you need for every acre, and be able to position that to take advantage of multiple different yield scenarios, and also then play like you said, the pollination and maturity game too.
Yep, so I'm going to go through specifics on that one because that's something we talked about before we were airing here. So the 2414 and the 2415C are the first generation products that we launched, and they are keeping up. They're right in the same bracket as the 6599, which is a newer product. The 6595 from DeKalb. Those two products are, the 6595 is probably one of the highest selling DeKalb products in the market. That goes from Nebraska to Ohio. It's just a very, very, very solid product out of their lineup. And the 114-day and 15-day are keeping up with both of those products extremely well. They're actually beating the 6618, the 6465, the 6391, the 6435. So, and I'm not calling that out saying that DeKalb has bad products. What I want to emphasize is that our products are keeping up from a first generation standpoint, and they're products that we shouldn't be ignored either. So the way I like to position those two products, we have a moderate to more productive soil type with the 2414C-30. It really likes that Springfield, Illinois style area where you kind of got rolling hills and transition acres. Yep. So then we have our product like the 2415C, which is kind of the flip side of that coin. It handles stress really well. It's got a little bit more of a fixed ear. You plant it. It's really meant for the 150 APH ground, and those two work extremely well in that fashion. I kind of like that product positioned in western Iowa, over in Nebraska dryland, Kansas dryland. It's handling that stress extremely well, but we don't have any duds in the lineup, and it's just a matter of talking to your area sales manager, calling in, talking to Dylan, myself, Lynn. We'll walk anybody through who wants to talk about these PowerCore products, because the data doesn't lie. There's too many locations. It's replicated 4-row data, and that's something that not all companies do, because when we teased out the first year set of data, when we were looking at different stuff, they were doing 2-row plots and they were doing 4-row plots because it takes less seed to do 2 rows, so you can look at more numbers and get a higher volume of different products to look at. And the 2-row data always favor the tall stuff, and the 4-row data is more realistic. So this is all 4-row replicated data, third party, non-biased. It's really exciting to look at.
4-row data means they plant 4 rows, harvest the center 2 rows, so you don't have the shading effect.
Yep.
So that brings us to what I want to make a comment about, and pun intended, the deep corn state. Why do certain companies sell certain products and not sell certain products? And I think our watchers and listeners should understand this. When most companies, if you're a company, you have to make a decision what side of the fence you want to get on. And the reason why is because the genetics companies basically don't force you to do that, but they kind of tie at least one hand behind your back. In other words, the incentives that they put in place for volume and whatnot kind of force you to, in order to have a margin to be able to compete and make a little money selling corn, and that's what seed companies are trying to do. You have to choose. Well, with the PowerCore products coming out, a lot of the companies out there use a competitive product, which is coming from St. Louis, and the way their system works is if your sales decrease, well, your value to them decreases, so therefore your costs go up. That's the bottom line. So for a company to switch genetic suppliers is hard for that reason, and then also inventory. Well, in our situation where we had no inventory, we're starting from scratch, we're looking to see, okay, who's the most potent genetics that we could possibly go with. We went with the Corteva side, and we looked at the data and we just said, we're convinced that this is the better mousetrap right now. So that's why we went that way, and we were unencumbered, so we could immediately produce large amounts and basically go out there full speed. So we feel, again, with our farmer first mentality, that we made the right choice. Some companies would like to go this direction, but unfortunately they're tied down with baggage. So keep that in mind. And then, also, a lot of these genetic suppliers and chemical seed treatment companies, they're always going after corn companies and seed companies, I should say, in general, want us to do 3-year deals, sign up for 3 years. And we won't do a 3-year deal here at Merschman Seeds. We absolutely refuse to do a 3-year deal with any supplier, even though they'll offer, a better cost. And the bottom line is we think this thing is changing so fast that if you tie yourself down, you could be missing opportunities. So that is a fundamental difference between Merschman Seeds and some of the other companies out there. And we're seeing this flow down to dealerships too, where some dealerships are choosing a brand over another brand, mainly because of the financial reward, not necessarily because, they think maybe because of the yield potential, but things are changing. Again, so you need to really listen to Ben and Lynn and Dylan about these corn hybrids. They are seriously worth trying, and to make sure you get them on your farm and find out for yourself. Find out for yourself if they're as good as what we say. And you may find out that there is a fundamental change going on in this industry, and don't miss the opportunity. So I'll get off my soapbox now, okay?
Yeah. You had 2 really good puns in there. Baggage, that was a really good one. I like that one.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with where we're sitting right now. I'm extremely happy. All of our products are performing the way that we would have expected them to, and Corteva is not going to be a one-trick pony with this. We have yield by yield stability products that are coming down the pipe within the next 3 to 4 years that are going to make products even better, and we have a disease gene that is going to really make the Corteva lineup extremely potent moving forward. So it's a fun time. It's a great time. I'll have MS Tech data we can talk about next week for the soybean side of things, because it's that time of year, and it's just really exciting to start planning for next year and the following year.
Yeah, it's Christmas for Ben right now. He gets to pick out all these new great soybean and corn products and get ready to produce them next year. So obviously it's Christmas, early Christmas for Ben. And also don't forget the fact that we have this independent nature again. Our seed treatment that we put on both our corn and soybeans is unlike anybody else's out there. And again, we're not signing a 3-year deal that says that we got to buy this particular brand and we get a little better price. We are picking what works for our farmers. So the seed treatment that Ben has on the corn is unbelievable. And so that's another yield enhancement that we have to great genetics.
My last comment on that would be pretty excited for the guys to see this, because when we talk about independent third-party data, what sometimes happens in the industry is that they get to pick and choose what they use for their check, and there's, I don't want to say any funny business, but there is sometimes they pick a check that may not be the right one, as far as it's an old hybrid that's come and gone, and they're comparing a new race car to an old race car, as Joe likes to say. The folks that we work with, they're picking the stuff that you guys are going to be familiar with. You probably have it in your field. You've seen it work. We've seen it work. They're very solid hybrids, and we're going toe to toe and keeping up, if not actually exceeding. And the greatest part out of all that, in the conversations that I've had with guys, we're doing it at a cheaper price.
Yep. Yeah, it's like Skip Long, when he was our corn product manager, he always used to say, how can we make it so good and sell it so cheap, right?
That's right. Dylan,
what do you got to say?
Yeah, so Greg Tylka from Iowa State came out with soybean cyst nematode sampling and kind of what we can gather from that information. So there's kind of 2 benefits when we're going to kind of gather those samples to see soybean cyst nematode pressure, and that would be to see if our yields weren't quite there, or if we had history of soybean cyst nematode, or so we can plan for, in this instance, 2025. So if we're planning for 2025, that's where our Peking options are going to come into play, or like our seed treatments we talk about with Nemco, attacking those nematodes. And Greg, he talks about kind of how to sample in this article that we can put up, and we really like to sample similar areas or the same kind of management zones that you have in those fields. So if we're close to like waterways or fence rows or something of that nature. So as we're going along, we know we have some great Peking Peking varieties that are coming up through our pipeline, and even in our portfolio right now, that are outstanding, even if they don't get on that Peking acre that have those issues. We've talked about it before. We've gotten that yield drag out, and they're here to perform in those top areas. So if we just keep in mind that if you don't want to stack Peking lines on top of each other each year or each time, go with PI 88788, and then along with that Peking, I guess in 2 years if it's a corn bean rotation.
I think for our listeners too, if you're not familiar with Greg Tylka at Iowa State, he is the forefront when it comes to soybean cyst, I would say probably globally at this point. There's a great resource that we have here at Iowa, and the management and the research that he's got going on right now, and the discussions that he has. If you don't have time to make it, definitely look up his research. He's done some talks at our crop fair in Burlington, and I think he does a tour on that. But it is the billion-dollar pest right now for soybeans, and it's very important to make sure that you're making management decisions. It's very important to enhance your yield. And really, when you're talking about soybean cyst, it's two easy things to knock off there. Either, like Dylan said, go with the Peking, go with the trait, or go with the seed treatment, or potentially if your levels are bad enough, to go with both. And make sure that you're taking that into consideration as we're in lower crop prices. We definitely want to do everything we can to enhance that yield to sell more bushels. And Peking options are good in those situations to take advantage of that ROI.
So when you talk about seed treatment, you're talking about starting line plus the optional seed treatment with Nemco in it. So yeah, it's right now when you're soil testing, go ahead and split that soil sample out, and this is the perfect time to check your cyst levels and start managing them in your fields, particularly that are going to soybeans this fall, or next spring, I should say.
I think that's a great point, that it seems to be when we do soil sampling, we're typically doing that going into corn. I'm just making a very gross generalization, but for most guys that they are doing soil sampling going on their bean stubble going into corn, might not be a bad time to maybe switch that up a little bit, start doing that ahead of soybeans as well, because I bet you'd be surprised between the fertility and the pests there, what you got going on, especially locally. For those listening, we've had 2 phenomenal years of yield, and we just want to make sure that we're not taking some of the very important macro and micronutrients for granted here, as we've probably mined a little bit of nutrition out of the ground, and it might be time to take a little bit of that yield, extra yield money that you got, and put it into fertilizer. Once again, I know we've said it before, Henry has not paid us to make those comments, but it's going to be very important, especially soybeans. If you're a 2-year fert applier ahead of your corn, potash is just going to be extremely important. And with the price that we have with potash right now, it's not a bad time to look at that.
Right. No, you're absolutely correct. It's kind of interesting when you're talking about the Peking side of things. There is a lot of demand and a lot of talk right now. So the southern half of Illinois, I've had 3 dealers talk to me in the past 2 weeks about how's this Jefferson going to do? How's this Jefferson going to do here? You know, what's your thought on Phytophthora? What's your thought on these other things? Because
and that is a Peking.
Yep, our Jefferson is a 3.3 maturity Peking, which would be considered way out of zone for those guys down there. A 3.6, 3.7 is probably a lot of their starting point for their early maturities, but there's a competitive Peking product coming out of the Corteva camp that is a 3.3, and it is lighting the world up down there. So I'm very, very confident for all of our listeners in the southern half of our sales footprint. If soybean cyst is the number one yield limiting thing that you have, our Jefferson is going to be extremely strong on those bean on bean acres and those guys that have high cyst counts. But I'm going to repeat what Dylan said. Peking 1 year, on that individual field, Peking 1 year, you're and Greg Tylka's talked about it. Once you put that Peking out there, the cyst levels could drop by 10-fold, 12-fold, 15-fold. You could have 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 cysts per 100 cc of soil. That number could drop down to like 120. So that's when you go ahead and the next time that field is in beans, you switch to the PI88788 gene. So go back to a Kennedy, go back to a Monroe, go back to whatever you want in that situation, and then worry about it maybe the next time or the following time that field is in beans.
And by that time, we'll have the later maturity Peking products in the lineup. So
fingers crossed.
You'll have them, Ben. You'll have them.
Shoot, by that point in time, we'll probably be retired. 5 years, right?
I don't know about that. I know my hair's going fast, but I don't think we're quite there yet.
Anything else? I know you've been on pins and needles today, waiting to see what corny jokes I got after the election, right? So anyhow, I do have a grand finale election joke, and it won't offend anybody, I promise you, okay? Let's just start off with, the bar jokes are always very popular, but also because, Ben has this
Drinking
love for horses, I got a horse joke for you to start off with. Remember, I start out easy and then try to work up a little bit. Okay, what do you call a well-balanced horse? Stable. Okay. How did the telephone propose to his girlfriend? He gave her a ring. Okay. Now, I grew up as a young man in the 60s, so I know the hippies, the hippie generation, late 60s, Anyhow, what do you call a hippie's wife? Mrs. Hippie. Okay. All right, now here's my grand finale. This is the political joke for this week. A robber held up a well-dressed man, pointing his gun and yelling, "Give me all your money." The man replied, "Don't you know who I am? I'm a U.S. congressman." The robber retorted, "In that case, give me all my money."
Truth there.
There you go. Hope that made you smile at least. Anyhow, and by the way, there was no surprise on the election this year because I went back to the prediction episode, that we always do in January. And if you go back and watch it, and you'll find out that we already knew what the election results were going to be in January, and we actually told you. So again, another good reason to watch Cup of Joe, because we're always several months ahead of the trends, okay? Anyhow, thanks for watching today. We hope your family is healthy and safe, and we'll see you next week.